right, welcome everybody to Groundwater Talk Live. I am Tom Beller, the Groundwater Guy, and today our topic is we're going to talk back on our topics of geopolitics of water, where we're discussing this every now and then, probably about once a month or so. Today we're discussing a timely topic: the aquifers of Israel, West Bank, and Gaza. And I originally was putting this together, and I was kind of going to do everything together with the hydrogeology and the geopolitics, but it started getting out of hand. So I guess we're going to divide it into two sections. Today we're going to talk about hydrogeology, and next week we will get into the sticky wicket of the geopolitics of Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, as some call them. And so we'll do the geopolitics next week, because that's going to be quite a discussion, and there's a lot of controversy there. So, but today we're going to talk about something that's probably a little non-controversial. There is some controversy here. We're going to talk about the hydrogeology. Before we get going, though, if you like the show, comment, share with others. If you find it interesting, I answer all comments, so I appreciate the comments, and I do answer comments that people leave both on LinkedIn and YouTube. So I appreciate that. So if you like the show, do that. It helps us get the word out there, so we get more viewers. All right. So today we're going to dive into the hydrogeology of the aquifer systems, the major aquifer systems that are in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. So occupied Palestinian territories, or OPT, as some people call them. But whatever it is, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Israel, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's dive in here. There are really 8 groundwater basins in Israel and the OPTs, but we're not going to focus on all these with our discussion today. 4 of these lie within Israel proper. So that's the Tiberias, the Western Galilee, the Carmel and Negev Basin, and so those really kind of are outside our geopolitical scope. We're focusing on the ones that have some geopolitical implications. So the other 4 are the West Bank, Eastern, the Northeastern, and the Western Aquifer. The Northeastern is generally called the North Aquifer, and then the Gaza Strip has the coastal aquifer. So those are really. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back here. I'm pressing the wrong keys again. So this is really a map that shows Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Israel, the Palestinian territories. And so you can see that there's quite a few aquifer systems in this area. We're going to be focusing on the 2 primary ones: the mountain aquifer system and the coastal aquifer system. So those are in Israel proper and Gaza and West Bank. So those are the 2 systems. Now, if you've looked at any of my hydrostratigraphy talks, then on Groundwater Guy, you'll know that we talk in terms of aquifer systems rather than aquifers per se, because these are truly aquifer systems. So there's going to be some individual aquifer zones within these. So those are going to be the actual aquifers. We're talking aquifer systems, which is an aggregate of different aquifer zones and including the aquitards. So we're talking about these in terms of actually aquifer systems. So when we look at the cross sections here and the geology, you'll see what I'm talking about. But technically, we're dealing with aquifer systems. So you'll hear them called basins, you'll hear them called aquifers, but technically they are an aquifer system when we're talking in terms of hydrostratigraphy. All right, so this is kind of a generalized map from Fanic Water, which shows the mountain aquifer system, which is to the right there, and the coastal aquifer system, which is to the left. The mountain aquifer system is actually broken out into three subbasins. There's the west, there's the east, and then there's the north. So the light blue there is the actual recharge area for the mountain aquifer system. So it's basically what we're dealing is with, which is an anticline there that trends almost south, little southwest, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. So so there's a recharge area there, and then we have the limbs of the anticline there that are your aquifer, and it goes deeper. Obviously, as you get into the limbs, that has some implications for water quality too. But this just gives you a general idea, and the arrows on there show which way the groundwater is flowing, at least there in the mountain aquifer system. In the coastal aquifer system, generally the flow is from the uplands to the sea, like a typical coastal aquifer. That's how the water is going to flow. Now, to the south there of the mountain aquifer system, we have the Wadi Gaza, and that's going to be part of the recharge area. That's going to gather water that's going to flow into Gaza and going to recharge the aquifer. However, that's been kind of dammed up here recently, so not much water flowing through those there to recharge the aquifer, which is part of the problem. So, all right. Excuse me. So the coastal aquifer system. Then let's dive in and talk about the coastal aquifer system first. It's really a system. The geology is really, the upper part is going to be continental deposits, so consolidated alluvium, increasing in thickness towards the sea. The lower part of the aquifer is going to be more marine sediments, and we'll look at the cross sections here in a minute. But the groundwater recharge area is inland towards the higher zones, as you might expect, and that recharges into the aquifer, which then flows to the sea. So the aquifer itself, relatively shallow. It does have recharge, and it is mainly an unconfined aquifer. As a shallow aquifer, it's mainly unconfined. So the productive zones form a narrow strip along the coast, and it actually extends from Lebanon through Israel and the Gaza Strip and into Egypt. So I got a map that shows that here. So that's so it really is really the coastal aquifer system because it follows the coast there. So there are some water quality issues that we'll dive in here too. Basically, pollution from untreated sewage, agricultural return flows, and you probably know what that means is you're going to have the fertilizer issues and nitrate issues, and seawater intrusion are all issues, especially because we have this is what we call an overdrafted basin, so they're pumping more than the recharge. Water levels are being lowered, and that's going to increase the potential for contamination and seawater intrusion. Excuse me here. All right. So this is a little bit of background on the coastal aquifer system. Obviously, Egypt, Israel, Palestine, actually into Lebanon too. The recharge, they say medium to high, and I guess in the Middle East that really, 20 to 100 millimeters per year of recharge. I guess that's considered relatively high for the Mid East. In the United States, I guess that probably wouldn't be that high. There is a connection with the surface water, as I mentioned. The Wadi Gaza is a surface connection to the aquifer. Mainly, we're dealing with alluvium or consolidated, semi-consolidated alluvium, and those are the sediment types. It's mostly unconfined. Over 18,000 square kilometers, mainly Cenozoic type deposits, Pleistocene to Holocene. The lithology is going to be a clastic series of sandstone, dune sand, gravel, and conglomerate. So we'll look at that in a little bit here. generally 60 to 140 meters thick. So not a really extensive aquifer as far as depth goes, but it's and there's some smaller subaquifers in there where we really get our water that actually much thinner than that. So the productive zones are actually pretty thin in there. Average annual abstraction or extraction, if you will, Egypt takes 70 to 80 million cubic meters. MCM is million cubic meters. Gaza takes 150 to 180, and Israel takes the bulk of it, 400 to 480. And these are going to be in different places in the coastal aquifer system, by the way. Water quality, fresh to brackish. We'll see we get some seawater intrusion coming in there in high TDS areas. The water use, domestic and agricultural. There are some agreements. We'll dive into that next week. Nothing terribly effective, but we'll dive into those agreements in the geopolitics next week. So and basically sustainability, we have an overdrafted basin, so it's create that alone is creating some problems here. So all right. So this is the actual extent of the coastal aquifer system. Here they call it aquifer basin. Close enough aquifer system. And the inset map up above shows agricultural areas versus cities. So you can see that there's a lot of agriculture in this area that does draw from this aquifer. So, and it extends from Lebanon, Lebanon, sorry, Tennessee pronunciation. So Lebanon, all the way down through Israel, Gaza Strip, and into Egypt. So this is the aerial extent. It's basically the colored area here is going to show generally the outcrop portions of the aquifer. It's a shallow aquifer at the surface, unconfined, as we mentioned earlier. So this gives a little bit different viewpoint of it, a little bit cleaner map that doesn't have as much clutter on it. So you can see where the Gaza Strip is in conjunction with the rest of the aquifer. As I mentioned, the groundwater flow is towards the west or the northwest, and that flows into the Mediterranean Sea. So the strip along there actually is in direct contact with the Mediterranean Sea, and that is the challenge here. So here's the cross section. So you can see here we have the Kirkar group, which is the coastal aquifer system is the Kirkar group, and so this is going to be the consolidated sediments, and now you can see what I was talking about earlier is you have these subaquifer zones in here, or what we'd actually call aquifers. We'd call this the whole aquifer system. In my hydrostratigraphic terminology, you call this the aquifer system, and then you have individual aquifer zones within here, what they're calling subaquifers. You can see these are relatively thin compared to the entire geologic package there, and that is part of the issue that limits the pumping and the capacity and the storage actually in the aquifer. Deeper down, you have the Sakia group, which is actually an aquitard, and then basically you have the continental portion of the bedrock that's truncated by this wedge that forms the coastal aquifer system, and then moving towards the east here, you start to get into what would be the where it says Eocene chalks and limestones. That is actually going to be the mountain aquifer system that actually underlies this part of the coastal aquifer system. Definitely struggling here today to speak. A little bit different viewpoint, colored one here, but this dives into the actual lithologies. So you can see the upper part of the Kirkar is overlain by sand, dune sands, less and soil alluvium. Then we get into the Kirkar. You have Kirkar A, which is deeper, and Kirkar B, which is the higher. Continental deposits is the Kirkar B. So that's going to be a calcareous sandstone. So basically a consolidated alluvium, 30 to 70 meters thick. Then we get in down to the Kirkar A, which has some different units in it. A marine shelly sandstone, some clayey red beds, conglomerate, and marl. So I am really having challenges today. Marl is basically a limey clay. And then we get into the Sakia group, which is the aquitard down below, and then a deeper aquitard zone as well. My goodness. All right. Here is, and this is not a very good map. I apologize. I tried to find a better map here for this, but this shows wells in the Gaza Strip. So the green is going to be agricultural wells. The kind of gray blue is going to be municipal type wells. You can see there's a lot of wells there. And for the size of the aquifer, this is a problem that's going to result in the overdraft. And indeed, we see that here. This is between 2000 and 2007. This shows water levels. And you can see that we definitely have some problem areas. Are recovered a little bit in the middle there, but definitely the northern part of the Gaza Strip and the southern part are definitely seeing some pretty significant overdraft and declining groundwater elevations. This actually shows, this reflects actually sea level where the aquifer is in relation to sea level. So the orange areas were actually below sea level. So the pinkish orangish areas are parts of the aquifer that are below sea level. So and the rest of it, the greenish tint there is actually where it's just barely above sea level, up to like 10 meters above sea level. So we are really ripe for saltwater intrusion, and that is indeed what we get there. This is a salinity map showing the area. So Gaza is kind of in the middle there. You can see where it says Palestine. That's the Gaza Strip, and you can see that we have that all that orange area in there is high TDS, so high salinity is what's going on in those areas. So definitely some saltwater intrusion. A little farther north, not so bad, mainly because I don't think it's being pumped quite as much as in the Gaza Strip and in Egypt. Here is a chloride concentration map for the Gaza Strip itself. And you can see that we have some areas where we have some pretty significant chloride concentrations. This is from 2010. I don't have anything more recent than that. And so generally reflective of where the where the agricultural operations are and agricultural pumping is going on is you're going to see seawater intrusion. There's also some chloride concentrations closer to the area that where we get the recharge from inland. So that's interesting too. But definitely there's some saltwater intrusion going on here due to the overdraft and proximity to the sea and the water levels that are at or below the sea level. Nitrates are another big issue, and you can see we have huge nitrate issues throughout the Gaza Strip. And once again, all that agricultural production is is really um, uh, agricultural return flows are going to have a lot of nitrates from the fertilizers, and that's where we're also seeing a lot of raw sewage that's being discharged, and that is certainly contributing to the nitrate issues as well. There's also a boron issue that contaminates the aquifer as well. I'm not quite sure the source of the boron. I think it's probably the sediments. There are some evaporites and and other sediments that may contain boron. So that's part of that. And here is some pictures of the raw sewage we see. This is definitely going to contribute to nitrate problems in the coastal aquifer. We're seeing raw sewage running out to the sea. So this is generally going to be a problem for for this area. All right, moving on to the mountain aquifer system. If my voice holds out here, the mountain aquifer system, when we saw the location, I'll dive into some more maps here. It's the largest groundwater reservoir in Israel in terms of annual water supply and water quality. Generally, pretty good water quality. So here's the problem though. The safe yield of the aquifer is approximately 360 million cubic meters of water a year, but presently 600 million cubic meters of water a year are being abstracted or taken out of the aquifer. Now, this is being helped and the aquifer is recovering as Israel switches more to desalination, and that's taking up some of the slack. So it's going to put less pressure on the aquifer, and this is important because obviously when you're extracting twice what the recharge is, you are are going to have problems. The freshwater portion of the aquifer system is underlain by salt water. This is really commonly the case in a lot of these types of aquifers, and so the deeper you go, the more saline the water is going to be, especially on the limbs of this anticline here. The mountain aquifer presently provides about a third of all fresh water to Israel, although this will decline due to the increase of the production from the desalination plants. I really apologize with my voice today. I am having some real problems here. Mountain aquifer system is divided into three aquifer systems. The western aquifer, also known as the Taninim, that supplies Israel about 340 million cubic meters of water annually, which is used by the Jerusalem, Tel Aviv area. Palestinians use about 20 million cubic meters of water a year from that aquifer system. The North Aquifer system, also known as the Nablus Gilboa, supplies Israel with about 115 million cubic meters a year, mainly for agricultural production in the kibbutzim, communes, and moshavim cooperative settlements in the Galilee area. And then the East Aquifer supplies about 40 million cubic meters annually to the Israeli settlements in the Jordan Valley and about 60 million cubic meters to the Palestinians. So this is a little summary here. So the mountain aquifer system, it says it extends into Egypt, and technically that's true, but most of most of the production capacity is going to be in Israel and West Bank. So um, generally it's low recharge, 2 to 100 millimeters per year. So low to medium, I guess, is what they call it over there. Um, there is basically the recharge area is kind of in the middle of the aquifer or at the core of the axis of the anticline, as it were, and so that's where your recharge is coming from. The rock type is basically going to be fractured limestone. Some dolomites are in there, so you're getting karstic carbonates is really where the water's at. So karst type aquifer. So um, um, Basically, you are going to be unconfined in the center part of the mountain aquifer system where the recharge area is. And then when you get out to the limbs of the anticline, you're going to be confined to semi-confined in that. And so you're dealing with, 14,000 um, square kilometers is really um, what we're looking at in aerial extent. It's Holocene in age, middle to late Cretaceous, I guess, is what the limestones are. So limestone and dolomite, some marl and chalk in there. Those are mainly going to be your aquitards in there within the system. So not your productive zones are going to be those marls and chalks. It's going to be more the limestone and dolomite. So um, pretty thick, 600 to 1,000 meters. And generally, you're looking at about what we said, uh, presently, they're saying 390. That kind of conflicts with what we were saying earlier. So I think we're seeing some of the reflection in these more current numbers of the desalination that's going on. So water quality generally pretty good, but we'll see there's some areas where we have some challenges here in a little bit. Water usage, agricultural, domestic, and industrial. And there are some agreements. We'll dive into that next week. And there is overpumping. This is an overdrafted aquifer too, although that is declining due to the desalination plants. All right. Here we have the extent. So the yellow is actually the extent of the aquifer. The orange color is the outcrops of the aquifer, and really what we have is you can see the outcrops are going to be our recharge areas basically, and that's going to be the axis of the anticline. So here's the three um, subbasins, I guess you'd say. The light blue to the north is the North Aquifer system. The medium blue is the East Aquifer system, and the darker blue is the West Aquifer system. So this is showing it. This basically is just showing the West Bank and how it aligns there. This is the diagram I had, but it gives you an idea of how these things line up. And there is some specific groundwater divides in there between these basins, and that's really what I'm trying to illustrate here. This actually extends a little farther to the west and actually to the south as well. But this came from a Palestinian document, so so we're showing West Bank actually here. Here's a series of diagrams. I guess I'd point out to the north, that's the cross section there. So you can actually see the upper and lower aquifers. They're actually diving underneath the coastal aquifer system up there. And in the lower left-hand corner, you're kind of seeing the cost of actually taking out water. It actually goes up to the southwest there because you're having to go deeper, basically. So that's really what that's illustrating. This is the northern part of the West Bank. You can see in the upper right, this is an index map. So not the entire aquifer, but this would correspond to the North Aquifer system. And you can see basically it really reflects a recharge coming into the axis of the anticline, whereas was the recharge area. So we see up to 1,000 millimeters per year in that specific area in the basically the core of the anticline where it's exposed, and that's where you get your recharge. Subaquifers in the West Bank. The West Bank contains the core of the limestone mountain aquifer system. So it's in the occupied Palestinian territories, if you will, the OPTs, and so that's going to be the core of the of the mountain aquifer system. It's a, as I mentioned earlier, it's a south-southeast trending anticline system in which the older rocks are exposed at the core, the younger at the margins. Obviously, it's an anticline, so that's typically what you'd see. So basically, there's four subaquifers in the West Bank. The first aquifer is shallow aquifer. Then you get into the upper aquifer, and so a lot of times the first and second aquifers are grouped, and the third and fourth aquifers are grouped. But this is generally the breakout. You have a deeper aquifer, and as I mentioned, as you get deeper, you get into higher TDS water, so more salinity. Here's the hydrostratigraphy. So we're looking at the upper aquifer. We got an aquitard. We have an lower aquifer, and then an aquitard. So the upper two aquifer zones are included in the upper aquifer here, and the lower two aquifer zones are included in what we call the lower aquifer. And then you can see the lithologies. So we have the chalk, chert, marl on top. That's actually an aquitard. And then the aquifer itself is going to be limestone to dolomite. There's going to be some marl and chalk in there, so you're going to have some lower permeability zones within the aquifer itself. And then the aquitards themselves are going to be chalk, marl, not fractured limestone, so low permeability limestone. Then we get into the lower aquifer, it's going to be dolomite, limestone, and marl again. And then we get into the lower aquitard, that's going to be marl and clay. Once again, marl is kind of a limey clay, so it's kind of distinct from clay itself. These are the cross sections here. So this is going through the West Bank. The upper cross section is the northern part. The lower cross section is the southern part in the West Bank. And as you can see, we have the limestone. We have you can pretty distinctly see the anticline with the limbs of the anticline. We do have another anticline. We have a syncline and then an anticline going to the west in the upper part. That's a little less distinct in the southern part, but we definitely see the anticline that forms the core of the mountain aquifer system. And then we have some vertical faulting in there that kind of chops it up and some upthrown blocks on the limbs there. So this is basically what it looks like, and you can see it's broken out. We have the upper part there. The browner colors are going to be more low permeability aquitards. The green blue is going to be the aquifer itself. So that's basically what this looks like. All right, hydrogeological diagram. This is pretty much your standard stuff, but we have our uplands here where we get the recharge. The actual abstraction area or where most of the wells are is located on the limbs, actually down gradient, not so much in the recharge areas. So the way it should be done. And then we can see where it kind of runs into the coastal aquifer and dives underneath it until it gets truncated by that western barrier chalky marl, which forms the skia group underneath the coastal aquifer. All right, so here's the aquifer productivity map. So the crosshatched areas there show basically what we looked at in the previous diagram is that that's where most of the production is going to be in these crosshatch areas on the western limb of the anticline. So that's where most of the production is coming from. There are wells obviously in the east aquifer and the north aquifer as well, but this is where most of the production comes from. There are some you can see in the blue there is the pipelines for the Israeli water system, so you can see how they are actually related to the production zones in the mountain aquifer system. All right, water quality issues. Generally good water quality throughout. There are some concerns with nitrates and potassium are what we're looking at. Higher water quality in the recharge areas, as could be expected, and degraded water quality in agricultural areas, and higher population density in the lower slopes of the aquifer system. Here is basically just a geochemical breakdown. It groups up pretty good here in these um, water geochemistry diagrams, except for the Genin area kind of strays off there in all these diagrams. That's in the North Aquifer, so a little bit different geochemistry, but most of it groups pretty good, which could be expected because you're mainly dealing with limestone aquifers that are fairly consistent throughout. So this would pretty much be expected. The groundwater salinity map. So here we see the area in the the dark orange is actually going to be highest salinity where it runs into is in the coastal aquifer system. It kind of runs down to the sea there, and you're getting higher salinity. But the kind of light orange is going to be 600 to 1,000 milligrams per liter. Keep in mind that 500 is generally the cutoff for drinking water. So the green and the blue are generally good water quality. And you can see the good water quality basically corresponds to the recharge area and into the East Aquifer system. Here is the total health index for water quality, and we can see this is for adults. Basically, they did some calculations for adults, for children, and for infants to see where problem areas were. They're not looking at this is not showing specific types of contaminants. It's taking the total hazard index or the THI. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. So you can see for adults anyway, we have some areas on the basically the overdrafted areas where we'd expect where we're getting some water quality issues in the West Aquifer system out on the limbs of the aquifer. This is on the above we have child and below we have infant. So we can see once again the recharge areas, relatively good water, poor quality water in some areas on the western limb of the anticline, mainly where they're having overdraft and there's some agricultural production. So we're seeing a couple hits from the nitrate in those areas as well. All right, so that is the presentation on the hydrogeology. I apologize for my voice today. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully that didn't mess up the things too much. But we will dive into the actual geopolitical situation next week when hopefully I can talk better, and we will take it from there. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please comment, like, and share. We appreciate all that. If you would like to be a guest on Groundwater Talk Live, if you're a groundwater expert, we'd love to have you on. This is the link to do that. Just sign up and we'll get you on the show. And I'd love to talk to you. And, and maybe your voice will be better than mine. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Groundwater Guy YouTube channel on right there on YouTube. All our past shows are on there. We have over 120 videos now. So something for everybody on there. Thank you very much. And